Hey everyone, Dr. C here with the DC program. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to join us this weekend. We are certainly living through some unique times right now. Since the start of the stay-at-home orders, there's actually been a decrease in criminal incidents. The movement restrictions mean fewer people are on the streets, which means less street crime. The fact that more people are home during the day means there's been a decrease in residential theft and burglary. However, since the start of the stay-at-home orders, multiple agencies around the country have been reporting an increase in domestic violence cases. Now, we know from natural disasters in the past that they tend to be associated with an increase in domestic violence that lasts even after the disaster has passed. But natural disasters are usually localized. What we're experiencing with COVID-19 has impacted the entire world. Domestic violence rates also tend to go up when families spend a lot of time together, such as during the holidays or, in this case, periods of confinement. So what we're seeing now, all of this is creating a perfect storm for domestic violence. While the current social distancing measures are necessary to help protect us from the virus, they've also impacted survivors' ability to access services, things like shelters, counseling, support groups, and other support networks. The situation has also impacted survivors' ability to reach out for help. Typically, a victim will wait until they're by themselves to seek out help. It's difficult to pick up the phone if your abuser is in the same house, let alone the same room as you're in. Increased childcare obligations have also made it more difficult to ask for help. For people who are currently living with an abusive partner, being at home can feel like you're walking on eggshells, trying your best to avoid an incident. Sometimes getting out of the house for work, to run errands, to visit friends, that can feel like a relief or a brief respite from their home environment. During quarantine, however, that isn't possible. Abusers are much more able to control a larger amount of their victims' lives. Now, in some instances, COVID-19 is being used by abusive partners to further their abuse and control. Controlling behavior is often used as a means of coping with trauma. Domestic violence is rooted in power and control. So while a lot of people right now are feeling a loss of power and control, they may attempt to exercise control in other areas of their lives in problematic ways. Now, we know that in general, as unemployment rises, so too does domestic violence. Financial worries may also prevent people from trying to leave an abusive partner because they feel they have a lack of alternatives. Alcohol abuse is linked to stressful events and a lack of social support. With bars closed, people are much more likely to be drinking at home, near their loved ones. The increase in sales of guns and ammo is also concerning because there's a clear correlation between firearm access and fatal domestic violence incidents. On top of that, many victims are too afraid to seek out help in hospitals or in shelters. Many are afraid to seek refuge at their elderly parents' house for fear of potentially exposing them to the virus. And abusive partners may play up on all of these fears to further their power and control. At this time, it's really important for those in potentially abusive situations to develop a safety plan. Know how to contact your local resources. Many websites for survivors have escape buttons, where if you click on them, it'll quickly take you to a different site and will erase the website from your browsing history in case your partner is attempting to monitor that. Many domestic violence services also offer online chat or texting if a phone call is not possible. You should have a family member or a friend with whom you can shelter in place if need be. Develop a code word that your family, friends, and if you have them, your children know in case you need help. Check in with them often. Find the safest room in your house that you can go to if an incident develops. Now, by the safest room, I mean one where there is no weapons and where you can easily leave the house if you need to, even if it's through a window. Please keep your cell phone on you and charged as much as you possibly can. Because it may be more difficult for survivors to ask for help at this time, it is absolutely imperative that we have more bystander reporting. Check in with your families, friends, and neighbors regularly and report any concerns to the proper authorities. Healthcare providers, I know we have already stacked far too much on your plates as is, but please be diligent about observing signs of potential domestic abuse. The same goes for those of us who are still working and have access to people at home. postal workers, food delivery workers, home repair workers. Even reporting on things that might not initially seem linked to domestic violence may be important. So, for example, the overwhelming majority of animal abuse or neglect cases are reported by neighbors or bystanders. Yet the overwhelming majority of domestic violence cases are not reported by neighbors or bystanders. This is true even though we know there's a link between the abuse or neglect of animals and an increased risk of violence for those who reside inside the house. So if you see something, now is the time to say something. We cannot afford to be silent bystanders any longer. And please do keep in mind that we should anticipate that domestic violence reports will spike after social distancing has eased. That's when we'll start to hear about all of the things that were happening behind closed doors. Finally, for survivors of assault and abuse, please know that we see you and we understand that recent events have potentially allowed past trauma to resurface in your mind. What we're living through right now is an unprecedented change in routine. That alone is enough to stir things up. Even more difficult to deal with, though, is the inability to distract ourselves by keeping busy. We're left to face our unhealed trauma in the confines of our own home. If you've been struggling with things you thought you had already dealt with, please know that you're not alone. Please do not hesitate to reach out for help or support. Your feelings are valid and you deserve to be listened to. Please know that there are resources you can reach out to. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.